FunSpot Atlanta delightfully surprised all of us when they announced their next big addition, an RMC hybrid coaster named ARIEFORCE ONE. With so many great RMCs now open all over America, how does this one stack up to the rest? Today I'm going to answer the question of what can we expect from ARIEFORCE ONE.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hey guys, and welcome to 808 Coaster Life. If you're new to this channel and you love roller coasters and other theme park related stuff, please consider subscribing. If you're a coaster enthusiast planning on a Georgia trip, an RMC fan, or even a local, and you want to know what to expect from ARIEFORCE ONE once it opens, this is the video for you. This coaster was one of the biggest announcements to come out of IAAPA Expo 2021, and for good reason too. At $13 million, this ride is the single largest investment ever made in FunSpot chain. Since this ride is planned to open in 2022, many may be wondering what it would be like to ride ARIEFORCE ONE. Well, let me give you an idea of what to expect. So the name ARIEFORCE ONE is a play on with, of course, the famous airplane Air Force One and the Arie family who owns FunSpot. Unlike some people, I actually really like the name and also the colors. They went with the youthful / patriotic theme for this coaster, and it makes for a great eye catcher for those going along the nearby highway. This coaster will for sure get people's heads turning. This ride has a height of 155 feet, 146-foot drop at 83 degrees, a top speed of 64 miles per hour, 3,400 feet of track, and 4 inversions, which makes it one of the larger RMCs. But keep in mind that unlike most RMC hybrids, this one is built from the ground up. The only other ground up RMC has done so far is Zadra at Energylandia. So this will be a first for America. Before 2019, RMC has only built Raptors and Topper Track wooden coasters from the ground up while using their iBox track for wooden coaster conversions. However, since the number of wooden coasters that could use an RMC treatment is getting less and less, I wouldn't be too surprised if more hybrids going forward are going to be built from the ground up rather than from a conversion. One more interesting fact I found is that this coaster was designed by Joe Draves. He designed notable coasters for Chance Rides and SNS, including Lightning Run, Gale Force, Max Force, and Steel Curtain. While most of these coasters had other problems, you can't deny that the layouts for these coasters are better than average and behave a lot like RMCs. I'm guessing this will be the first RMC designed by Joe Draves, but since he works for the same design firm and shares many design philosophies as Alan Schilke, who designed all other RMCs, ARIEFORCE ONE will probably ride the same as any other RMC. Anyway, I have no idea what the queue scenery and theming will be like for this ride, but since it's FunSpot, I wouldn't be too surprised if there isn't much done in terms of theming. This ride will be using RMC's second generation swing axle trains, which are found on their more recent hybrid coasters, which has slightly different restraints and a slightly smoother ride experience from what I've heard. The train design itself, I really like. Your ride experience on ARIEFORCE ONE starts with, well, I'm not sure. None of the ride promo showed the pre-lift section. I know a good No Limits recreation put 2 bunny hops before the lift hill, but I guess we'll have to wait for construction to progress to actually see the pre-lift section. For now, I'm just gonna pretend that section doesn't exist. After climbing your 155-foot tall lift hill, you'll experience the ride's first drop. While this drop may not be as tall or as steep as Goliath, Steel Vengeance, Zadra, or Iron Gwazi, I can imagine that this would still feel similar to those drops. The first element following the drop is what RMC calls a Raven Trust Dive. Compared to a normal dive loop, this element banks outward and gives you a little bit of airtime before twisting the other way and completing the inversion. I can imagine this element having some width, especially towards the back of the train. The ride then goes through a slight bend to the right and a speed hill before going through what they claim to be America's largest zero-G stall. Sorry, Goliath. Like other RMC stalls, expect this to deliver lots of hang time, especially since you'll have to travel to Poland to ride a ride with a longer stall. Following the zero-G stall is an outer banked turn. I can imagine this one feeling very similar to Steel Vengeance's. So far, this ride already has what I think are the best elements from Zadra and Steel Vengeance, so we're off to a great start. Following the outer banked turn is a giant double up. Depending on how this ride will be running, this double up could provide 2 nice pops of ejector airtime. Next up is a zero-G roll over the arcade. This roll is taken with a lot of speed, so I can imagine it being pretty intense, maybe even on the level of Velocicoaster's Mosasaurus roll. That might be a stretch. We'll have to wait to find out. Next is an off-axis hill, or as FunSpot likes to call it, fakey airtime, which looks to provide a lot of lateral since the transitions are very quick. This ride turns around low to the ground, pulling 3.75 Gs. I wouldn't be too surprised if this was the most intense part of the ride. You then go through your final inversion, yes, the corked roll from Storm Chaser returns, before going into what they call a chili dip.
What?
If I had to take a guess, it's probably when there's a very subtle dip between airtime moments. You finish off the ride with the world's 3rd ever quad down, sorry, Kentucky Flyer beat you to it, before popping up into the brakes. Unlike lightning rods, I noticed that this quad down is in basically a straight line. You probably won't notice that on ride since, you know, you're gonna get thrown out of your seat, but on a POV it looks a little weird. They probably did this for space reasons since this is flying over a path and probably some pre-existing buildings. But that concludes your experience on ARIEFORCE ONE. While I can't predict how this would be like compared to other RMCs in terms of layout, keep in mind I've never ridden an RMC, what I noticed is that this ride features the best elements from multiple elite RMCs. It's got Steel Vengeance's outer bank, Zadra's stall, and Lightning Rod's quad down, which already makes this layout better than most coasters out there. And while just having a collection of really good elements doesn't always yield the best ride, luckily this ride looks to also have some good pacing. This may not be one of the longest RMCs in terms of prime ride time, but I think that helps this ride's pacing. The only places I could see this ride slowing down a little bit is on the peak of that giant double up and the so-called chili dip. RMC also did a great job of differentiating this coaster enough from the other RMC in Georgia, Twisted Cyclone. But what stood out to me more than the layout is where it's at. Fun Spot Atlanta is not a very big park. The only other coasters there are a kiddie coaster and an ENF High Miler. Yes, they probably focused more on their go-karts, but this is still a huge step up compared to the additions they got in the past. In a way, ARIEFORCE ONE reminds me of Wildfire at Colmarden, which isn't an amusement park, but rather a zoo that happens to have 3 roller coasters. Wildfire really put Colmarden on the map, and I think that ARIEFORCE ONE will do the same for Fun Spot Atlanta. Once this ride opens, enthusiasts traveling to visit Six Flags Over Georgia will probably want to hit up Fun Spot Atlanta too. Before RMC became as popular as they are now, elite coasters from Intamin or B&M costed over $20 million, which makes it difficult for smaller parks to build elite coasters. But now with RMC, smaller parks like Fun Spot Atlanta, Colmarden, and Kentucky Kingdom are building these amazing coasters at a fraction of the cost. It looks like RMC is steering the coaster industry in the right direction. What do you think will be the best element on ARIEFORCE ONE once it opens? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to know which coasters I think need an RMC makeover, check out the card up there. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to let me know by leaving a like on this video and maybe even subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.